good morning. Thank you for sharing your Sunday morning with us, everyone. This is Can We Talk About That, disappointment, anger, and trauma. And we want to make this a very personalized experience. So we want everyone to think for a moment about why you're here. Disappointment is part of all of our lives, anger's in all of our lives, and we're all largely moved and formed and shaped by the traumas in our life. So if we remember that when we're angry, we're actually depending on someone else for something that can help us orient ourselves. So for us, today's success means something very specific. It is to be able to not just be controlled by our anger, but to use it for its highest purpose. And so that's going to be a little bit different for every person on the journey, but we're going to help put some shape to that goal. And we want it to be a sticky and attractive process. We want this to be something that people are feeling comfortable in and attracted to. So we'd love to get your feedback. If you have any comments, always feel free to respond in the chat or talk to us at info and candle and bonfire, info&candleandbonfire.com. And then we'll also be able to get back to you when you email us there. So please reach out to us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And also, we want to know if people want to be interested in a focus group. We're going to hold a focus group. We'd love to get everyone's participation in. And if you're interested, go ahead and just write focus in the group chat, and then we'll get back to you about that focus group.
All right, good morning, everybody. So welcome to Can We Talk? Thank you for the intro with that, Kaveh. This is a workshop series brought to you by Candle and Bonfire, and our vision and mission is to help you get what you want by giving others what they want while avoiding the experience of your own sacrifice and suffering in the process. So actually uplifting all of us together in this. And this workshop, just to orient you a little bit, it's designed around several polls, 2 maps, 1 breakout room, and then all this is put together to resolve this pressing issue. And we're going to do some didactics and an embodied meditation together, followed by breakout rooms, and then finally a chance to reflect together as a group and decide on our individual and then our collective call to action here. Kind of cool how we form this collective here together in this space. So we're going to think about what will we take from this workshop back out into the world. And we spend so much time working in our lives in it, but this morning we're going to take a break from that to commit some time and attention to working on our lives. So we're going to get started right out the gate with a chance for us to get to know you better. And so we're going to start with 2 questions to help us get an idea of where everyone's at. So first question here, we're going to be doing these polls. First one is it true that we all get angry? Can you picture a time when either you or someone else was angry? Seeing some nods already.
If we
we could do a show of hands too. Do you want to do that instead?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, to repeat, the question was, can you picture a time when either yourself or someone else got angry? That's all we want. Yes, Derek, I can certainly remember a time like that.
Yeah.
Double time. Yeah, lots of anger, lots of disappointment.
Yeah, you got it.
The next one Anna can tell us is about what they needed.
Yeah, so about needs. This is such an important piece here. We focus on people's needs, right? So what did the angry person in that situation need? What was the person depending on happening, which didn't happen, that made them angry? We think, was it physical, emotional, mental, financial, or social? What was it that they thought they could have, in this situation that they should have in a way? Here we go. Here's the poll. 30 across all these other areas, but emotional is at 80, right? So really speaks to the emotional needs. Awesome. And so we're going to take a break from the polls. Thanks for everybody working hard on that together. And we're going to study that response a little bit more and just kind of keep sitting with it and planning future workshops too. And so what we've discovered is that, no matter how smart and capable a person is, anxiety, fear, and negativity can reliably decrease and even cripple an individual's ability to contribute to function in and enjoy their life with other human beings. So we're going to address this today. We're going to introduce each of us really quickly here too. I'm Dr. Anahita Nawab Holden. I'm a clinical psychologist in private practice. And I found that mental and emotional health can be challenging to address, specifically in relationships. So giving to others can feel like a burden at times, right? When we get to a certain point of giving in a way that actually isn't aligned for ourselves, right? Isn't actually resonant for ourselves. And then asking for help can feel like an imposition that we're putting. So a lot of burden in here. Many of us have a hard time asking for what we need and resort to relative independence and self-sufficiency. And while that's not a bad thing in and of itself, right? That's something that we actually need some of. Learning how to get the most out of each other is part of what we'd really define as a successful and fulfilled pro-social life, right? So to be able to get what we need from each other as well, and to be able to have the conversations and interactions that we need to do that. And so this project of designing a harmonious life is complicated when we have trust and anger issues because of events in our past. Many of us, our most hurt feelings and grudges are emotional and psychological, but we're often only trained to approach them intellectually, right? So to analyze them, maybe try to understand the why. But I've learned that many things, can't be understood logically can be rapidly resolved psychologically. So there's more than just the logical piece, right? More than just the analysis of it. Then here's the real key is that psychology is much more of a body experience than we normally think. So many of us feel the need to justify our psychological experiences and feelings with logical explanation, but this leads many to needlessly struggle and suffer for years when we're just trying to make meaning out of a situation, trying to figure it out, and we're really kind of like connected just from the neck up, just the head. And really, we need the mind and the body both online because both are having an experience here, right? The body is working with the mind. And so really what we find is that when we use somatic and embodied techniques, this can really help ease ourselves down out of only being stuck in our heads and the analysis of the situation and into the full body nervous system experience. This has helped a lot of people experience rapid relief and improvement in the quality of life. We're going to do some of that today. And so to summarize, I use this multimodal approach to mental and emotional healing with an emphasis on the circulation of vitality and personal energy. So enough about me. Let me introduce my co-host. My brother is Dr. Kaveh Nawab, and he practices anesthesiology with an emphasis in heart and lung transplant. And his time in that role has taught him a lot about the ways that things can go right and the ways that things can go wrong when a group of highly trained, ambitious overachievers team up for a common goal. So together, we've spent a combined 40 years closely examining the presence and role of negativity in our personal and professional lives. And today we're excited to introduce you to a quick and simple way to improve understanding, especially when tensions run high, right? That's the trickiest time for us to understand each other, but it's actually the time that we need it the most. So
Yeah,
I'll pass it over to you.
it's when we go into our fight or flight reptilian brainstem, but oftentimes it's when the stakes are most high that we get triggered into those antisocial kinds of interactions. So thank
Right.
you, Sis, for a very descriptive introduction. As Dr. Holden described, this is Can We Talk, where we openly discuss what we want, how to get it, and relevant challenges. Today's program is specifically designed to address a core experience we all share, negativity. And although it can make us uncomfortable, we have discovered that the only honest, progressive, and inclusive way in, or excuse me, the only way out is in. So today we'll use a few tools like didactics, games, sharing, and reflection to soften our own experience of disappointment, anger, and trauma. So just like our marketing materials describe, the question is, can we talk about that? That's the transformative power of negativity. And our goal is to disarm negativity so that all of the usefulness can be leveraged by us and brought into alignment with our own agendas. Negativity is very powerful psychologically and neurologically. It's conserved across generations and across species. It obviously has a lot to offer, but like any force of nature, negativity takes work to harness successfully. And to stay on point, you got to know the point. And so, by way of brief orientation, the point of today's work is to use that for transformation. As opposed to just avoiding negativity or trying to justify negativity, we're going to use it. And supporting that effort is us. We in this room together, we're supporting the effort of the point. We're supporting using that. And then, of course, how we're doing it is those things we described, the didactics, reputation game, verbal translation, embodied meditation, and breakout rooms. So we're gonna use all this stuff to massage our experience of anger.
That's right. And so just a brief trigger warning about this today, we're creating a safe space, but most safe spaces are a lot of times meant to protect people from the negativity, from the difficulty, right? So by design, they kind of tightly constrain the range of acceptable conversation topics. But in contrast, our safe space today that we have here in this collective field is intended to house and protect ourselves and our negativity so that we can find a way to coexist and collaborate with them. So we'll keep it simple, light, and playful so we can stay grounded, right? We never want to overwhelm or flood ourselves with negativity because then we can't actually really work with it, especially as we're getting started. And so that said, if you ever need to excuse yourself or just want to take a little break, reset, and or have any concerns about the subject matter, just feel free to do that. Feel free to share or to excuse yourself and take that break to take care of yourself around it too.
That's right. It's a free country. It's an open forum. So please be yourself, take care of yourself, whatever you need. Let us know if we can support you. And so it's interesting to consider that we this workshop is designed to address a specific problem. When upset, many of us only have access to two responses, both of which leave a lot to be desired. And the first one is summarized by the advice: if you can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all. So we keep complaints to ourselves, we question our own legitimacy and authority, it breeds resentment and bitterness, we lose our power, we alienate and isolate our feelings from our thoughts and from others. And this is the example of the people pleaser with repressed anger. This is when we lower our standards and expectations for how good life can be, just so that we can maintain our sanity, but we don't stand up for ourselves in this extreme example. And the second one, it can be described as brutal honesty at any cost to the feelings or experience of others, because we just have to get something off our chest and we don't care how we do it. This is the example of the hot shot with a short temper. This is when we keep our expectations and standards high, rightfully so, but then attack and accuse ourselves or others or the past, whatever or whoever we hold responsible for the problem. But there is a third option, and we're going to introduce that. It keeps our standards high and lets us stand up for ourselves without devolving into hostile, accusatory, alienating, and antisocial behavior. But that third option requires a kind of humility where the angry person is able to say, your actions matter to me very much. But for this to work, we're not going to say it in a hostile, in an accusatory way. We're going to say it with admiration, because anger, when it takes control, it says it with a kind of traumatized entitlement. So this translation is very quick and easy. If you consider that as disappointment, anger, and trauma, and you see how closely it's related to this, the angry, disappointed, traumatized person, despite all their bravado and refusal that they need help, is actually counting on someone else. They need dependability. They are dependent and they need perhaps your dependability. They're innocent and they're just asking for your help. They feel insecure and threatened. They need some reassurance or security. So the translation of disappointment, anger, and trauma to dependability, innocence, and security gives us compassion for the angry and out of control person, recognizing that in some way they have lost control of their emotions and they've given that control to you. So examine your own experience. You'll see that this is also all true for you when you're the angry person.
Great, thank you for that. And In our breakout rooms today, by the way, we'll be walking each other through a single instance of anger, guided by some very simple prompts. So we have that coming up. But first, we're going to briefly cover some useful information to quickly get us oriented and focused on the desired transformative experience. So we're going to look at two maps now and then combine these two maps to create a powerful and reliably empowering game here. The first one we've got here is based on the polyvagal theory. So the question here of how safe do you feel in your life? How much of your time is spent around people that you love and trust, doing things that are fun? And then in contrast, just think, how much time do you spend feeling worried, anxious, suspicious, and socially withdrawn? Even if things aren't currently bad, there could be just this kind of feeling of being vaguely worried without facing any immediate problem, right? So just kind of that background field of like agitation that I think a lot of us know so well. So while both of us, along with our friends and family, are quite blessed and privileged, and we feel relatively safe in our lives, these are still, these annoying, pesky, and intrusive islands of negativity that pepper our experience. These include somewhat inexplicable disappointment, anger, and trauma, as well as fear, anxiety, negativity, and guilt. The polyvagal map here is one that really helps us get a grip on all this. On the far left, you can see here there's the pro-social parasympathetic ventral vagal system. What that means is that it's playful, engaged, productive, and safe. You guys can think also of a time when you've been feeling that, think of an example of a time when you feel this kind of feeling. I think we all know what that feels like.
Feel it
And
right
then in
now.
the middle, yeah, like maybe right now, hopefully, right? And then there's the mobilized, right? So that's when we have a little more action, right? We have some mobilization in response to something important being on the line. And this is sympathetic activation when we find ourselves in the fight or flight mode of behavior and relating to our lives and other people. And what's kind of interesting about that, right, is that there's like a big spectrum of that. There's like an optimal level of a little bit of that energy and arousal, right? Like when we're giving this, workshop together, there's a little bit of, just activation just to keep us, feeling really engaged and alert, but it's not, fight or flight, full blown kind of energy, right? So that's where you start to get into overwhelm, or maybe like it's the seesaws, balanced way too much on one side. And then on the far right, see what happens when you can no longer fight or run away. This is when you really have the parasympathetic system again, but it's in an antisocial freeze response where we just want to curl up into a ball. We want to shut down because we don't feel safe. But we also don't feel like we have the option of changing anything. So we're kind of stuck in that situation. And this is when we feel both unsafe and disempowered. They're the three
Yeah.
different states that we're working with. Yeah.
Yeah, another point that's very interesting and described here is, as you said, they can be overlap, which I love. This play, dance, and sports, where the green and the orange overlap, where you feel safe, but you're also mobilized. So that way, it's not just we're not doing anything, we're just hanging out. There's something on the line. There's something that we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to win something. So there is a win or loss, but it's not a life and death struggle. And personally, so much of why I'm interested in this work is I feel and I see so many of us who are not in a life or death struggle, still feeling like we are. And so that safety can be restored while maintaining the sympathetic activation that makes us productive is really, really what is my and our interest in making this public knowledge and sort of part of the general discussion. So speaking of maps, whereas the polyvagal, this map gives us the inner map of all the ways we can feel around each other. The Chipola matrix gives us the outer map of how we can be with each other.
That's right. So this is that interpersonal piece, that there's an intrapersonal within ourselves, and now there's inter, like Kava is saying. So then if we think about it this way, it's sort of like when you say someone is a good person or a bad person, that's helpful somewhat, like to have some categorization, but it can be a kind of black and white thinking, right? And it's not quite descriptive enough. So the Chipola matrix right here is an example of something that's painting a much more textured and helpful picture. So in a moment, we're going to reveal how the creator of this grid described A through E. But first, we'll ask you to let us know in the chat, so you can just start typing in there. How would you describe a person in position A? Right, so you can see them here in the middle. So that's a person who, by the way that they're acting, is not a gain to others or a loss to others. They're also not a gain to themselves, gain to others. They're just kind of along for the ride. So they're not making a real difference in any direction for anyone. Yeah, so see here some comments. They're in balance. See if Maurice hopefully can see the graph. Indifferent, neutral. Kava says staying under the radar, balanced. Nice.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you for that. And then noticing next one here, a person in position B is creating gains for themselves and gains for others. So in the chat, now you can let us know what kinds of words would you use to describe someone who is both good for themselves and is benefiting others. Sebastian said A, neutral, but not getting what they want for A. Wonderful. Goals, mutualism. Washkan says useful, Nilufar says engage, Carter says value. Those are great descriptive words here.
Yeah, so in his book, in his international bestseller, Mr. Carlo Cipolla introduced the world to this brilliant visual description of the 5 different ways humans can be to each other, and it's simple and complete. The best way I think of this is not which one am I, but where do I spend the most time? I showed this to a young, brilliant, and successful friend of mine who responded, yeah, I spend most of my time on the right side of this map. And I respected his candor. And in business meetings with partners of mine, we discuss how we can serve our customers in a way that keeps us in the right upper hand corner. For instance, if we need to raise the price of products, how can we make sure that we add value to customers to whom we pledge our loyalty? Ideally, we want to spend as much time in the upper right as possible.
Right.
That's not always
yeah.
possible.
Yeah. And sometimes we find ourselves relatively ineffectual just because we don't want to rock the boat. We might make promises we can't keep, hurt anyone. And sometimes we find ourselves successfully creating win-win situations for everyone. So there we are. You can see the big circle kind of traveling there. Other times we might find ourselves acting more like selfish bandits because we're desperate. Desperation can kind of do that. If we're honest, we also might act kind of foolishly. I don't know about stupid people necessarily. I feel like that's a little harsh, but we might not act totally reasonably and make things worse for ourselves and others. And finally, we might often find ourselves people pleasing to make them happy, but to our own loss, right? I'm sure a lot of us know what that feels like, to experience that and really feel that inside, right? I'm giving, but I'm not really experiencing something of benefit from it myself.
And so the first poll is, it's about whether when you can, if you can remember a time when you yourself got angry, but held it in. When you yourself got angry, but held it in because there was a reason you couldn't express the anger.
Okay, we got some results in, I guess. Yeah, we're still coming in. So one more second. All right, there we go.
So this is a time when you had anger, it arose for you spontaneously, you were triggered into anger, and you had to hold it in for whatever reason.
Unanimous, 100%.
Then the next one might be just as unanimous, but I don't want to lead the jury. This is going to be about the second poll. This next poll is about a time when you saw someone else get angry or annoyed or frustrated, impatient, and they had to hold it in.
That's the
So this
second
isn't
one.
you, it's someone else who had to hold in their anger. So the main three things that anger can do is it can stay within a person, or it can go to the person that we're angry at. And the last one is to go through a third party. So in this next poll, we want you to think of a time when you got angry and you told the person that you were upset with. You got angry and you told the person that you were upset with that you were angry, that they disappointed you, that you needed them to act differently, to think differently, to feel differently. So this is a yes or no question, whether you can remember a time where you got angry, you were triggered into anger by someone else's behavior, and you told them they need to change. Think of a time. The next poll is you're seeing a pattern. It's when you saw someone else. When you saw someone else get angry and give the person a piece of their mind. Have you ever seen a person get angry and then give the person a piece of their mind? The last two polls are about the third path that anger can take, where it doesn't just stay within you, it doesn't just go to the person that you're upset with, but it goes to a third party. This could be a therapist that you talk to about your anger. It could be a coworker or friend you gossip with, or it could be someone who you lash out against, who does not have a role in why you're angry, but you lash out at them because you just feel like you have to and you need to. So do you remember a time where you got angry and you told a third party about it? Either
So
a
here
therapist.
we have the results for this one. You
Oh,
can see
amazing.
that.
The last one is when you saw someone else do this. Finally, we're going to think about when you saw someone else get angry and then lash out at an innocent bystander or gossip to their friends because they were upset, but they couldn't tell the person that they were upset with. Thank you, everyone, for sharing with us.
So now we're going to transition here. We're going to move into our somatic piece of embodied meditation around this topic. And then we're going to move into our breakout rooms. So we've had a lot of concepts, a lot of ideas coming at you pretty quickly. We're trying to get a lot of this goodness in here. And so we're going to just take a moment to slow it all down and reset a little bit. So feel free to just kind of get comfortable in your position. Notice if you're leaning forward a little bit like I am right now.
So sorry to interrupt, my dear. Let me just ask you to, or we can just show briefly this diagram to make it really clear for people that this
Oh,
is,
okay. Yeah.
these are the three paths where the anger stays within the person themselves. Then the anger can go through your enemy. You can express it to your enemy. And we put an enemy in quotes because really what you want to do is make them your friends in this case. And then finally, a third party where it goes through a person that you're not mad at, but you become mad at them because of emotional or mental disorganization in the way you're thinking. So Anna, thank you so much. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no worries. And that's kind of helpful, isn't it? Just always the visual, right? So now we can kind of be with that. So yeah, so let's just transition back now. So just get comfortable in your seat. So we're going to do a little bit of a meditative exercise to get into connection with how this actually feels in our minds and our bodies. So let yourself just kind of settle in and notice if you'd like to have your eyes closed or open and see which one feels good, like softly open or all the way closed to get yourself fully into that moment, dropping in. And just find your breath. Notice what the quality of your breath is like right now. Notice what it's like to just feel into your seat wherever you are, the back of your chair. And then allow yourself to start to call up a time when either you or someone else was feeling anger, disappointment in this way. And we're going to do this in both the meditation and in the breakout rooms, where we're going to, really think about a situation that's not too intense, because we don't want to overwhelm ourselves. Again, we want to go from like a scale from 0 to 10, 10 being most intense anger. I want to stick with a 2 or a 3 type of situation. So kind of mild, maybe more like annoyance, irritation versus full-blown anger.
Mm.
And so once you got that situation in your mind, just kind of feeling your way into the image of it, maybe the sounds, the tone of voice that was used, body posture, gestures, situation where there was anger and maybe it either got internalized, got kept in, got externalized to the person the anger was directed at, or to the third party, just noticing what that was like and how it played itself out. And then start to notice what sensations you are feeling in your body right now. So just sweeping your awareness from head to toe, notice, are there any little signs of that activation there? So sometimes the fight or flight energy that we were talking about earlier, it can show up as a little bit of a quickening of the pulse that you might feel in your wrist or your heart area. Or you might feel a little bit of tension showing up in the neck or shoulders, jaw, fists. Might feel a little bit of heat rising. So you could just see if any of that is there. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But you're just kind of getting curious about what's there. If you are feeling quite a bit of it, you can just notice, what is it like to squeeze the fists and then release them. So just start to discharge some of that energy by squeezing slowly and then releasing back and forth. Or raising the shoulders in like a little micro movement up and down. Really slowly, micro movement, little intentional movement here. Connecting with it and working through it a bit too. And so we're going to start to transition out now, but just to kind of take that awareness with us into our discussion of this topic. So start to just wiggle the fingers and the toes here. And any wiggle or stretch of the body that you want to take. A little stretch break. And blink the eyes open if they're closed and come on back to the space that you're in. So just taking a look around the space, back to the here and now, and back to our shared space together, taking in everyone's faces and names. And here we go.
Thank you, Anna. That was wonderful. Yeah, I'm always reminded of just how magical the connection is between the mind and the body, and then my mind and others' minds, and my body and others' bodies. This whole thing about anger being so confusing is largely because we don't think about it too often. We don't give it its due. We don't really sit with how beautifully interconnected and dependent on each other we are. So thank you for that embodied reminder of how the past still lives within us today, and we're really all trying to make the best out of each other's lives and our own and all the resources we have. So now that we've thought about it intellectually and we've done some embodied experience, we're going to go into our breakout rooms where we're going to do a little sharing. And here is the way it's going to look. It's going to be 15 minutes total, and we're translating that to this disappointment, anger, and trauma to dependence, innocence, and service. The angry person wants something. So we're going to think about it in terms of that. Now, speaker one is going to tell a short story about a time when you or someone you noticed, that's why we gave you both options, when you got angry or impatient or annoyed, or when someone else did. And then describe the path you noticed anger take in this example. Did this person keep it to themselves? Did they tell the person they were upset with? Or did it go to a third party like a therapist or gossip? And then what did the angry person need from the person they were angry at? Was it physical, emotional, mental, financial, or social? What kind of support did the angry person feel they were not getting? And finally, how could they have noticed they were dependent on the person they were angry at? This is the piece that this is the humility piece, because it doesn't feel good to think that you're dependent on someone. That's why anger has this kind of bravado to it. But really, what we're doing is trying to melt the ice so that we can recognize the objective fact is that an angry person is dependent on the person they're angry at. They've given the emotional remote control to the other person. So we'll take a moment here to just let you read this. So first of all, speaker one goes for 5 minutes, and then we'll have 2 minutes of reflective listening from the listener, just to say what you heard. And then the speaker two will go for 5 minutes.
The knowledge is really amazing, guys. Great work. It's
Love
it's beautiful to soak it in, and it's such a high science of both cognitive and philosophical realms. So thank you. I'll be listening in the whole time.
And
All
thank
right.
you. We're trying to make it
Awesome.
practical. We're trying to make it so people can directly take this into the world
Mhm.
when they encounter anger, either their own or someone else's.
Of course, yes, it's highly valuable. Yeah, take your time, Kaveh. Take a deep breath in between each slide.
Thank you.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you.
Yeah. Is the pace a little rapid, would you say? I felt like
No, just
a
if there's
little.
a slide up,
Okay.
then that's a lot of reading and also listening. And
Yeah.
so mostly on Kaveh's side, when there's a slide up. But as long as people have access to the slideshow later, I think that wouldn't be a huge deal. Mhm.
We were talking about doing this same program on a regular basis because repetition is always helpful.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much we were thinking about how many people we're gonna lose, and we didn't have too much loss. We retained 18 participants out of 22, so this is beautiful. Thank you all so much. A great way to summarize this approach is that when we disagree, instead of arguing over who's right and who's wrong, we can design a way forward. And so the programming that we're going to do together is going to emphasize this more in the future. And I know we're getting close to the hour, and we just want to have 2 polls that we ask you about. So yeah, like we mentioned earlier, we'd love to get your take on how this went today and how we can design it for improving it going forward. We're going to be doing workshops like this on a regular basis. So this poll is going to ask you if you want to be a part of a focus group, if we can reach out to you so we can talk about how it went and compare notes. So just let us know, no pressure. If you don't want to be part of it, no problem. But if you do want to, we'd love to get your yes responses so that we can reach out to you comfortably.
I mean, the way you frame the question, we would leave with a lot of guilt if we said no here. Just
It's a free country.
Free country, but I'm free to put pressure on you.
That's that good communication skills right there.
Yeah, it's I'm trying to be hypnotic.
So 12, 13, okay, it's coming in. 14 have answered so far.
Love you guys. Thank you. So the next poll is going to be
Should I show
about what.
should I show the results real quick, or
If you want to guilt anyone who said no, like Morel said, you want to guilt anyone who said no,
That one person.
there are no names? There are no names. It's anonymous.
but they'll
So
still feel guilty for putting no if everyone else put yes. If
okay,
there's 2 no's and we say we know
stop
who you are.
share.
All right.
Stop share. And bring
So
up
now
the very last one. Yeah.
the last poll is what should we talk about next? If we can certainly do this program over again, because I know it's a lot of information and it's a new way of thinking about anger and disappointment, but there are different topics that we're interested in discussing. So we're going to launch the poll and we're going to see what people like. Mom, would you mind reading them?
Oh, there is, okay, for next month's workshop, what do you think? The first is the brain and the point of life. The next is cults and other mutual admiration societies. Then the third one is double standards that work well and serve us. And the last one is reputation management and moving on from that, disappointment, anger, and trauma.
Absolutely. So if any of those speak to you, please let us know which one you think would be most interesting for the next session.
can I just ask you to expound upon what these titles mean, please? like particularly the first two that are a little abstract.
That's right. So, the brain is always doing work. It's doing all this meaning making, it's seeing things, hearing things, and we're going through life. We're trying to make something happen. We're trying to avoid some stuff. We're trying to make things happen. And so it's a big question. What are we trying to do on a daily basis? And what role is our brain playing in helping us figure out what matters? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And the second one, what was it again?
Second, cults and other mutual admiration societies. Admiration.
So if you consider a cult, it's really a group of people who are trying to do something outside of the normal world. And even us right now, this isn't a cult, this is a Zoom room, but we're trying to work not in our lives, but on our lives. We spend so much time in our lives putting out fires that we're not often taking time out to admire each other, to admire ourselves. And in fact, admiration is often considered to be vanity. And so there is some very important distinctions that we can make about what it is to admire yourself without being vain, or admire someone else without kissing their ass. And so it's very important to think about, or it can be useful potentially, I don't know, for me it has been, to think about what it is that makes people come together for a common cause to improve their own and each other's lives.
Okay, so I think we have 12 responses, 13 or something. So I can show the poll results.
Thank you. Yeah, something about the way it's bugged, I can't see it unfortunately, but sounds like everyone else can. So that's great.
So 6 people wanted the double standards that work well and serve us. And 6 people want reputation management moving on from that. And 1 person for the cults and other mutual admiration.
Great. So Anna, do you want to introduce, welcome people to share?
Yeah, so we know we're at the hour now, so anybody who's got to pop off, feel free to do so. And we thank you so much for being here together
Thank
with
you.
us. Yeah, if anybody wants to hang in for just a couple minutes, just to be able to share what your experiences were like from the breakout room, or if there's anything noteworthy. Of course, we always want to be mindful when we're sharing on behalf of someone else, to get their permission first to see if that's all good. But otherwise, yeah, we can take 1 or 2 shares if anybody wants to go for it.
I can say something.
Awesome, Maria.
So I just want to preface it with, I was the one person that said no, but I thought,
All good.
it was, you'd have to meet on video conversations to then further discuss, like further plan workshops. And I was like, honestly, I don't have the time to like meet multiple times, but if it's like surveys, just brief discussions, input, that's fine. I thought it was like you're going to join a group that's now going to create future workshops.
Totally.
So,
no, that makes total sense. It might feel a little bit like,
overcommit.
whoa.
yeah, I was like, well, I don't want to like say I'm going to be available to join a group when I know I won't be able to.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks, Maria.
so I
Thanks
had
for
a really
sharing.
good experience today. The topic really stood out to me just with where my life is right now. I felt like this was a really good, appropriate introduction. And on those 2 topics that you guys, the 4 topics you had put for us to choose from, I would love to, the double standard I put, and then I would love to see a continuation of this and being able to, today I know we started with like minimal annoyances, and having time to talk about that was really helpful. And it would be nice to, as we progress, maybe have things that are not necessarily minimal, but we can to talk a little bit as we become more comfortable, just to see like when we're even talking about something, how we feel telling someone about a minimal annoyance as opposed to like something that was, maybe like an 8 out of a 10. So,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
thank
that
you.
sounds like, yeah, I love that share. Thank you for that, Roya. Just that sense of like readiness, right? Like, okay, I think I'm ready to kind of move into this next stage of it now, working with a little more intensity together. So that's great input.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
I think having maybe a little bit more time would be useful. I mean, obviously this was just the first one, but I think it was difficult, at least for me, to sort of like have the full conversation.
Mm.
Now, of course, like everything, resources, including time, are limited, and there does need to be something of a schedule. But I think maybe, and then also having people maybe track the time, because I felt like I wasn't exactly sure how much
Oh yeah, we could have
was
that
happening.
countdown.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
just
then
like a time tracker.
yeah, and then I also think having the questions posted in the group chat in a way that's permanent would be good, because
Yeah.
you know, like we saw them like flash across the screen. It was like, okay, and then it disappeared before we could kind of like really figure out what we're doing and how to work with it.
Mm.
And so you know, Zoom doesn't have all the features you want, but I think the best way to do that would be just posting it in the group chat. At least that's what I've
Yeah.
seen other people do.
Good call. Thank you, Carter. That's really good feedback on time tracker, and then posting the questions just to make it a little more doable. And then yeah, time, we could think about a little bit more time as well. If it just feels a little too rushed, we can be a little more leisurely. Yeah.
Even better yet, you can send a PDF of the questions as well, because that's like what others do. So it's like, it's easier. Then that way you have it and you can even fill it out.
Love that.
Very
you,
good.
Dr.
We'll do that.
I'm sorry. I have an idea. I can put together like an app or something that could kind of really like, centralize everything, and I'll volunteer to try to help with the technological stuff. So if I know I'm not trying to take your job or anything. I just want to assist and help if I can, just offering services. That's it.
The quality of your camera tells us that you're definitely in a position to give us some good tech support.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, man. It was as I was late trying to put it up, man. I was about to be on the phone in the car for a second, but I made it back to the chair, man, and the comfortability of the garage.
All right. Any last shares for anyone, even at what the experience of the breakout, the content of that was like? We could take one more share on that too. Or if we're feeling pretty complete, we can also
There was
land there.
also in chat feedback from Maral about stupid being harsh and intelligent being too complimentary. People are all struggling with their own challenges and may or may not have the tools to deal with. So.
I think it's a great point. Anna and I discussed this, and it's that we want to give people the tools. We don't want to shame or blame people for being criminals, even. A person who is benefiting themselves at the expense of someone else is obviously doing that because they feel forced to. So I think Moral's point's excellent.
And
Yeah.
in addition, or on that same point, is it possible for you to bring up that slide with the 4 quadrants?
Yeah, let me do that right now.
Is the slideshow something that'll be available to us as well, Cobb, afterwards?
Yes,
Awesome.
We'll send it all out.
Yeah, so I was thinking that maybe if those 4 extremes are moved into the deep corners, right? Because it's really the furthest out. And then maybe in the position where you have these words, there's something less extreme to show that it's very much a spectrum, and that the outlier case would be 1 in a million or a billion.
I think that's an excellent point, along with not calling these categories of people,
right,
but rather modes of operation that are available to everyone.
Right. So then maybe it's an adjective like stupidity or helplessness.
Exactly. Beautiful, beautiful point. Yeah, we'll make it. We're gonna improve Mr. Chipola's matrix.
The slides were great though, especially the fun immobilized, the 3 in a row. Yeah, and that one. Yeah, the Venn diagram was really great.
Yeah, I really like this Venn diagram because when I was looking over it and you guys were explaining it, I was like, wow, I if I think about it, I do spend some time in the mobilized state, and you don't realize it until you think about it. And now having these three categories, it just makes it a little bit easier to think about on a day-to-day basis and evaluate where you're at.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so much of that, it's interesting if we talk about the cultural components in this culture that we're in as well. Like it is reinforced to be mobilized at all times, right? Like it is just so ingrained in our culture. And so it's like you're saying, right? You know, it's like a sense of we don't even realize how much we are on all the time because it's so pervasive. So I love your thought there of just like tracking, like, oh, which one am I in right now? And we do vacillate between them a little bit, but sometimes we're just kind of stuck on that mobilized state, and we can play with that a little more with
I'd
awareness.
like to suggest that playing with it also involves doing things with other people, because fight or flight is largely driven by feeling alone, feeling threatened, feeling like your life and death is on the line.
Mm,
And the feeling like you're safe with other people, especially in high performance fields, is sometimes often associated with complacency and non-productivity. In health sciences, we are starting to hear a lot about mental health for healthcare workers, but the old generation is still considering mental health to be a sign of being soft, asking for help as being a sign of being soft. And so the idea that you have to be alone, you have to do this thing by yourself, I think really drives a lot of what Anna you're describing as the cultural default of
mm.
being mobilized and having to prove yourself, defend yourself continuously, indefinitely for your whole life.
That's right. It kind of does play into that isolation, right? And then Moral had also mentioned something about that, about communal cultures versus those that promote individualism, right? The same kind of thing, right? It all kind of hangs together, that it can create that kind of isolation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think Mastana is not with us anymore, but she has some very good she's done very good work. Oh, she is still here actually. So yeah, actually her discussion about this was one of the most concise and thorough treatments of the collectivist versus individualistic um, modes of thinking. And so this is a conversation that I'm really looking forward to continuing with everyone going forward.
Mhm.
Well, I think that'll wrap it up, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us here on this beta test for the Can We Talk series. And this was Can We Talk About
You-
That? And next time
you
we're going to
can,
talk about something else.
Oh, you can drop the slide and it'll put us back in gallery as you say goodbye.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Good point.
Thank you.
Mhm.
You're so welcome. Thanks everybody for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thanks
Appreciate
for
this.
coming. It's
Thank you.
wonderful.
Bye.
Bye.
See you all soon.
Thanks.
Thank you
Cece.
so much. Thank you so much. That was really, really great. And I was wondering if you guys could do this at a different level, because post COVID, I know I'm a teacher. I know teachers are dealing with a lot of children post COVID that have anger issues because of the fact that of the lockdown, they had to stay home, and how they had to deal with their life changing. And so these are really important factors as to how teachers also deal with children in situations like that. I was wondering if you guys have anything in that category where I would love to mention this to my school, where you guys could actually come and present it to all the teachers, because I feel like it would be very helpful. Because, you know, on a daily basis, obviously, as teachers, we're always conflicted with our thoughts as to, oh, how should I control my anger? Or how should I control my students' anger? And what are some of the ways I can help? Because usually we say, walk it off, or go get a book, or go sit in a good place where you feel comfortable. But we're also dealing with children that have difficulties like in learning. And you know, it's a broad situation where people like you can actually help, schools. I mean, you can bring it
Absolutely.
out and just share how we can stabilize the situation, because we've had a lot of workshops at school, how to deal with anger and how to discipline the students. And especially post-COVID, it's been really, really, like, kids are really, really sensitive right now, totally
Yeah.
sensitive. And because they stayed home, obviously parents let them do whatever they want. So when they come back to school and they have to follow the rules and regulations or the rituals, it's kind of conflicting and it's confusing.
That's
So
right. Yeah, that's a great point, Marina. And Maral said here, trauma through COVID, right? This is a collective trauma that we've all
yeah,
been through. And then the kids,
yeah,
like you said, are having to try to make sense of that and adjust. And
yeah,
then learning has been affected.
yeah,
So the good news is that all of this actually has been and can continue to be really adapted for children.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
this is exactly the kind of thing that you can do with kids, but in a developmentally appropriate language.
absolutely,
So
absolutely.
I think that's a great idea.
Honestly, I just want to share that I have witnessed in the past some teachers how they handle things. They're just like, sorry to say, but like asking the child, and when the child is not willing to do that, you know, then it becomes a huge mess, you
Yeah.
know, obviously. So I think teachers, just like everyone else, they need to do a lot of these workshops in order to stay focused on who are they dealing with and how they should deal with,
Exactly.
you know, situations
Yeah,
like this, because sometimes they just forget, you know.
that's
And
right. It's a continual process, like you're
yeah,
saying, in
yeah,
regulating
yeah,
ourselves to then
yeah,
help regulate the child. So like you're saying, it's like a co-regulation versus co-dysregulation, both getting
exactly,
dysregulated
exactly.
together.
And so one of your prompts was, it was like, if you have seen someone else in a situation and you got angry about the situation. I have gotten angry, but I
Mhm.
haven't said anything, because I felt like if I do, then this person will lash out on me and say it's not your business or whatever, you know. So yeah,
Absolutely.
it happens all the time, all the time. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
and in addition to being good for the students, for the class, for the school, it's good for the teachers. I mean, the teacher himself, herself needs it.
Yeah.
So
yes,
that
we do.
should be emphasized, that it's good for yourself first, and then for the
Definitely,
students, for everybody.
definitely, for
Yeah,
everybody. And
yeah.
and it's such a sensitive situation, because you're dealing with kids. I mean, I've devoted most of my life teaching. I've been doing this for 27, 28 years. And for me, obviously the student comes first, no matter what my situation
Mhm,
is.
mhm.
But not everybody thinks that way. See, not everyone thinks that way. Some people treat it as, oh, it's just a job. I'm just going to go to my job and then go home and then whatever. But I just feel that teachers really need this kind of help. You know, it's not easy teaching. I know Afsane, who is also a teacher, can vouch for that. And it's not easy being a teacher, but it's also not easy um, um, not being able to control yourself. You know, it's not easy. So I think most people need that. They really need to control emotions.
Yeah,
So
I love your reflections, and it brings up a few points. One of which for me is that I've increasingly started to treat and talk about life as as a
mhm.
game of learning how things work and learning to troubleshoot them, including my own feelings, including my own thinking. Whereas there is a kind of romantic notion that you should not control your thoughts or you should not control your emotions, that wouldn't translate to your body. If you lose control of your body, that's Huntington's, that's Parkinson's, that's ALS, and it's terrible. But we excuse ourselves and other people for not having control of our emotions. because we generally think of that as so constricting, so oppressive. But there is another way to think of it, which is that you want your emotions and you to be aligned for the same purpose. You want you and your thoughts to be aligned for the same purpose. And when you find that you're not, there's no need to be ashamed or angry or embarrassed about that. So much of what we want to do at Candle and Bonfire is to make it okay to say, I lost control of myself. I lost control of my emotions. But I want next time to have a little bit more control. I want next time to not lose my mind when I'm pushed outside of my comfort zone. And so the taboo around needing help, the taboo around failing to do something is something we really want to start bringing out into public conversation.
I completely agree with you. Totally.
Lucky your students.
Oh,
Students are
thank
lucky.
you. Thank you.
Students are
I
lucky.
love them. I mean,
What school
they're
you go?
great.
I'm sending my kids.
Kids are, they are the future, honestly. And to be honest, we don't want to, I don't want to see anyone scaring kids, I mean, they come to a place where they want to feel safe. And, it's very important. It's very important. They come first, no matter what. Some people say parents come first. No, they come first. So I don't know. But thank you so much, both of you. I hope like maybe we'll have like a conversation at a different time where maybe you guys could share a little bit of how you could, I could hook you up with our English department, where maybe you can offer to do something. I would really like to see that happen.
We'll continue the conversation through email and
Yeah.
through ongoing events.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for your
Thank
support. And that's exactly why we wanted to do this, to bring this conversation to a wider audience and use the network.
Yeah, because honestly, especially post-COVID, everyone's angry. Like everyone's angry. It doesn't matter. I mean, people have changed their lifestyle. Obviously, we're not happy with the lifestyle. It's not what it used to be. I mean, I look back at how Neda and Afsane and Tarne, all of us, we went to the same school, Nilufar, we all had such a great life, carefree, we enjoyed it. But now I feel like, it's just not the same. And I feel bad for that. I honestly do. And if there are ways that we can help people feel safe again, I think that would be a miracle.
And for me, it's the combination of safe and productive.
Yes.
Because on the opposite side, the conflation of safety with complacency is very common. People think, well, if you're safe, you won't be productive. But I think actually the description of the collectivist nature of Iran and the other mother countries really points to a different possibility that you can be safe and productive. You don't have to be living in sympathetically driven fight or flight with your back up against the wall in order to come up with powerful solutions to important problems. Like Dr. Joe Dispenza says, you don't have to create in misery. You can create in gratitude and beauty.